Ashlands is no joke. After playing it as it went live for pretty much everyone on Steam today, the full update, I struggled. But I managed to succeed, and I really wanted to talk about some of the tips I learned along the way. As a solo player on default settings, Ashlands has been kicking my butt. Obviously lots of changes and balancing stuff happened with the PTB, and now I'm trying it out properly. Hopefully it's coming to Xbox soon after a small delay. So this video is a bit different. I'm going to be talking about taking on some of the enemies and the best ways, their weaknesses and resistances, and my journey through losing my ship full of my gear to hopefully reclaiming and finding a new patch of Ashlands to go and explore. So let's go. Getting a fob, basically a small area where you can have a portal as soon as you land on Ashlands, is really important. Making sure it's properly protected, even more so. Yes, you will need the brand new shield to help give a bit of protection from it just burning if you're using wood or any other resource, but obviously the Growstone material is probably going to be best. But it isn't immune from damage. A Morgen will absolutely demolish it, and it seems to hit through walls, which is kind of annoying. I honestly hope that gets patched in future. So that's a big tip for today, making sure that you do the basics in Valheim, and it can be easy to forget after maybe not playing for a while, but using the terrain, digging out trenches and stuff to give yourself more protection. So it does matter what you bring to you, or at least get that portal set up so you can bring some materials to make stake walls and keep some of the enemies at bay. Pretty Captain obvious stuff right here, but honestly it'd be surprising how quickly things can turn, especially with the sheer amount of mobs. Some of the most annoying ones are the vultures. Now these guys I had a real trouble with until I realised they're actually pretty easy to take on as long as there's not more than 2 of them. Once you get 3 or 4 swarming you, it becomes difficult, but the idea is that you just back away from them and choose that moment to strike. You don't need to panic, don't try dodging, don't try just blocking a lot of the shots, just simply go backwards and go ahead and then unleash the shot at the right time. This will save on your stamina, and as long as you haven't got anything else to deal with, this is the best perfect way to defeat them. They're pretty weak to frost damage as well, FYI, and pretty resistant against poison, so think about that in terms of your weapons. When it comes to the charred, they all have the same weaknesses. Spirit is going to be your friend, so making sure you've got a good upgraded Mistwalker, and it goes without saying, make sure your carapace gear, or maybe if you're going mage, is fully upgraded to maximise. You cannot really do this on the quick, which I'm discovering more and more. If you don't have upgraded armour and don't have the best foods from the Mistlands, you are going to struggle. This isn't a side biome that you can just kind of skip to or maybe go in half-hearted. You do need to have conquered the Mistlands, obviously, because you need the Queen drop, but you do need to make sure the rest of your gear is fully upgraded. These guys are resistant to piercing damage, so you have to be careful about what you're utilising. Spears and polearms maybe not the best idea, but it does keep them pushed back, and that can be crucial sometimes. Otherwise, hammers are going to be the best bet to again give them that knockback, anything that's going to do a strong amount, and obviously magic. They're resistant to fire, but the pure explosive nature of it does mean it does a good job. But frost magic's probably the way to go, slowing them down. You're not doing yellow damage numbers, but it's not greyed out, they're white ones, so yeah, you know they're not resistant to it. You've got to play Ashlands like it's a Call of Duty level or a game multiplayer match where you just got players coming at you from all directions. You always got to be scanning and aware of your surroundings and what enemies are nearby, as things can quickly turn sour just by not paying enough attention to how many enemies are coming over. Just like previous biomes, if you make a lot of noise, digging, going after resources, that can alert a lot of enemies to you, and at night time you'll get a lot more. So the best advice is to just never go out at night unless you're being extremely brave. So after that mad run, I just about managed to get back to my crumbling fob and got my portal set up. This effectively happened because I'd landed on Ashlands and I had no lava on this island. There was like nothing left to do. I attempted to sail to another one, but my boat got destroyed by a Morgen. So that all happened, and this was basically me trying to rescue that. For sure, if you're playing with friends, then one of you being support class with the protective bubble I think is really good here. It certainly helped me get back to my stuff and get my next portal up and running. Magic can be key to your success in Ashlands if you use it well and making sure you've got it pretty upgraded. There were lots of exploits where you could use certain staves to gain more, but it looks like that's been patched out now. So try and take some time in Mistlands or other biomes by getting your magic skills up a lot more before you head over to the Ashlands. I was honestly so terrified of fighting one of the Morgen. They just move so creepy. I ain't gonna lie, they do definitely creep me out. They're resistant to slashing, blunt and piercing damage, and fire's not going to be your friend while taking these guys on. Lightning damage is probably your best bet, but again takes a good amount of frost damage as well and definitely will slow them down. That lunge is probably the hardest one for me to really gauge and work out how to defend or dodge. The swipe attacks are fairly easy to kind of choreograph and get her out of, and then obviously the roll, well, it's kind of scary, but they tend to move sideways a lot, so as long as you're not actually directly on the side of it, you don't need to panic as much. It's just that lunge that did me over a bunch of times. So patience and making sure you're fighting just one of these on their own. If there's a bunch of charred, that will quickly descend into a shit show. You want to make sure you can single this guy on his own. Also be warned as well, they tend to have quite long legs and seem to be able to just roll around in the water. I had one chase me pretty much all the way through the ashlands when I was trying to direct my boat, hence why I lost it the first time. So if you do have one of these attack, you're going to have to get off and fight it on one of the spires, because it simply will start keep attacking your ship. But I was pretty proud of myself. It was the first time I've actually taken one out properly on my own. Good amount of space, no other enemies nearby, and that was the key to success. Also helped that I was popping my protective spell good enough for that lunge. Eventually, once you get obviously the ability to craft the new staves, then yeah, certainly the new lightning one is going to be a lot more helpful. Ranged is probably not the way to go in Ashlands. They have definitely buffed a lot of the new armor sets, or the new one at least, to make it a bit better with certainly stamina, but I still feel like it's kind of weak sauce or just a bit mad to use a ranged attack. Mainly because the enemies just move so quick. You haven't got that much to go and get some shots off. You can see even with ranged magic, I was still struggling to keep my distance away from them. So when you think about a bow or the arbalest, I think it's just way too slow to use it on some of these guys. Your stamina will be draining, and then you won't be able to run or dodge out the way of any of these, especially when they're swarming. That doesn't mean neglect your bow completely. You still want to bring something with you to take on maybe some of the sea serpents, the bow maws. Although admittedly, if you've got a frost staff, that's going to be the best thing to use against them, as they're pretty weak to it. And forget any kind of ranged fire arrows or spirit arrows, as they're also pretty resistant to that. In fact, they're immune. Almost every creature in Ashlands is resistant to poison as well, so it's definitely something not to be utilising. As long as you've got the patience, you should be aiming to get on top of some of the spires, keeping up high, take some of these on. And again, it's the same deal. If you see one of these in the water, unless you've got a good clear run ahead of you and the wind behind you, don't try and outrun one of them. You will have to deal with it and fight it. The best bet is to get on top of a spire, make sure you've got a crafting bench down to repair your ship if it does keep going for it, and hopefully rain some arrows down before eventually it dies. So I just about made it to the wreckage of my ship and I was getting my stuff back, but obviously that boiling water is going to roast you pretty quick. Obviously the new flametal armour will help keep you alive a bit longer in the boiling water, but yeah, you don't want to spend too long in there. So I was finally ready, I got everything back, and it was time to go and sail hopefully to a new Ashlands area, see if I can find some lava to actually start getting more flametal. My version of the Ashlands has about 10% more spires than you'll have, because they changed it during the PTB, but I'd already started generating mine, so yeah, I had a bit more of a tougher time steering around. I'll say it again for the people in the back, as soon as you see a Seymour, park up, get on top of a spire, take the aggro away from your ship, and make sure you've got repair bench down just in case. It only takes a good few hits from them and that's it, suddenly your ship is gone. Although I found definitely the bow maws seemed to be doing more damage directly to it when it did hit. The bow maws lunge attack does do a good amount of damage. You can see they're like 64, I think, close to that. But it does have real problems aiming upwards, so make sure you're just directly above it and should be good to avoid its free balls or it fires. They'll all do fire damage, not poison, which are first fall. Finally had success, landed at another new place, lots of lava going around, but of course I was at the wrong time of day and basically I got my arse kicked. Trying to find the perfect place for a base is really tough, especially when you've got to get that FOB. You might want to try seeing if you can maybe dig or find a way to level off some of the spires so you're not directly on land. And I was mocked a little bit for maybe taking refuge in one of the putrid holes, but I actually think it's a pretty good idea to be close to a cave. As long as you've got the confidence to take on a morgen if one's inside, the caves will ultimately give you a safe spot to rest when you're getting overwhelmed, like I'm about to die here. It's at this point you just need to run and be using your healing potions to get away. Once you've got archers shooting at you, you've got the vultures attacking, the tweakers, and the threat of lava burning you as well, you've pretty much got no chance. And this is my greatest accomplishment in Valheim today, getting across that landscape because I had no other choice, no other ships, no other way, by simply jumping and using my feather cape to get across the spires the whole way there. Maybe the slight advantage of having maybe 10% more spires? But yeah, it's totally doable, making sure you've got enough stamina foods. If that happens to you, then fingers crossed, if you've already made land somewhere, you've got a portal set up elsewhere, it'd be a good chance for you to get back. The real tricky part though is finding a way to get up. Not all of the spires have a soft incline for you to just walk on and then be able to jump and get up, so you have to really make sure you're plotting out exactly where you're going to jump and go to, or hope for a storm where the waters can swell and lift you on top. Against all the odds, I finally did it, and honestly, I was about to rage quit when I died the first time. It was that frustrating, but I actually made it across. I was so proud. So yep, absolutely go and take on one of the spawn stones. It will help reduce the numbers, and certainly something you need to do. You need to just keep running around them that way, and fingers crossed you'll be able to take out the stones relatively easy. Obviously you'll have more twitches start spawning as well, so you might have to come back and forth. But otherwise, running around it like this and then getting some hits in with an Atgar or a hammer is your best form of taking them out. At some point though, things still got a bit hairy and I wasn't optimally with the best foods, and this is where the putrid hole comes in handy. Don't go any further because you might have to deal with the morgen that's in there, but you can come in here, get some respite, wait for your health to replen, think about your next move and then go back out. I did this pretty much over and over, taking on 1 or 2 enemies at a time, singling them out, and this really led to me finally getting a foothold and being able to survive a bit longer in the Ashlands. Eventually doing enough work because I brought the right materials with me to obviously make a stonecutter's bench, a regular crafting table and a stone portal, as I'd already found some of the molten cores in previous putrid holes. And I just simply built where I was. Like, I don't feel like there's that many optimum places, like I said, other than being close to maybe Diverger ruins. Any of the other ruins could easily crumple and you've got more problems with enemies always just spawning and coming close. But at least with a cave you can dive in there if things get a bit too much. So getting your defences up is the best bet. I'm going to work on this and put my natural trench around with my pickaxe as soon as I can and my hoe. But of course, once you've got your portal up, you can bring up a mass of resources. So even if they're not the best, it's still better than nothing at the moment. And making sure you leave a bit of space. As I showed earlier, that morgen could hit through the wall. So you want to have layers spaced out effectively and then go around putting campfires everywhere to hopefully stop enemies from spawning. And yeah, it was a win for once. That's why I've done this video. For once, I've survived. And hopefully I've given you a few tips on how to take out some of the enemies. The Asvine is still one I'm missing off my kill list legit at the moment, so that's something I'm going to be focused on in the future, and maybe some more about the blobs and obviously how to get the full metal. Hopefully this style's been okay, me just talking over my live stream footage, and I'll see you for more Valheim guides, gameplay and news soon. Bye bye.